You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687. 687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Everyone loves liberty. Our rights come from God, not the government. So why are you letting other people tell you what's best for your health care? Exercise your freedom with Liberty Health Share. Liberty Health Share is a community of people who voluntarily share one another's medical costs. Liberty Health Share is founded on the idea that most people truly want to help one another. Healthcare sharing allows members to do just that as a true community that supports one another in times of need. Liberty believes people should make decisions for themselves and their families. Members are able to take back the freedom to make their own decisions about their health care. Freedom from guilt or doubt about how your money is used. You have the freedom to direct your health care, not to be dictated to by bureaucrats. Stop letting others tell you what to do and join a community of like-minded people. Exercise your freedom. Join Liberty Health Share and take back the control of your health care while helping those around you. Call Liberty at 855-58-LIBERTY. Again, that's 855-58-LIBERTY for more information, or you can check them out at libertyhealthshare.org. Again, that's libertyhealthshare.org.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
At St. Jude, a family never sees a bill at all. It's like the world has been lifted off of your shoulders.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same.
All right, folks, good evening. This is the Jen and Rick Show. I'm one half of the crew, Mr. Rick Robinson. We have the codinged up, but ever so always lovely, the Jen Homestead with me this evening. So, yeah, it could be an interesting show. I'm a little hot. She's a little high, so, you know. So we were having an interesting conversation when we were off the air, which is why it took a couple seconds longer than usual for me to open the mic. So we're going to open with this because I have, we have questions. Because, look, I've been all over everybody's TL the last few days that are all like, oh my God, we should boycott dicks and blah, 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 blah. Look, I'm all good with businesses selling whatever the hell they want to sell. That's kind of the same premise that we were having when we were like, hey, you shouldn't be able to, go after this bakery for not making you a cake, especially if they're willing to sell you the cake and all the parts that go on the cake. They're just not willing to assemble the cake. It's not like they're refusing to serve you. You guys were customers there 5 minutes ago. You bought pastries. So that's not a problem for me, as much as it has been for a lot of folks, because I'm like, look, at this point, you guys sound as crazy as the ones that are like, yeah, let's go after the bakers for refusing to make cakes for gay people. So you were all pissed about that, but now you're like, oh my God, we should never do business with these stores again because they're trampling all over our Second Amendment rights and blah, 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 blah. Hey, let's go grab a latte. That's how much the namby-pamby side y'all are starting to sound. Because the simple fact of the matter is they're businesses. They have the ability to regulate their own practices. What concerns me, and we were talking about this before the show started, is now we have all of these businesses that have decided that they're going to not sell ammunition or firearms to certain people below the age of 21. So let's put the shoe on the other foot for a second. What if I were to say, now I live in the South, so don't judge me, but what if I were to say walk into a 7-Eleven or insert convenience store of your choice, depending on where you're listening from, and I'm 21 years old, but they tell me they're not willing to sell me alcohol because they have a store policy that says you can't buy alcohol until you're 30. I see a problem with that.
Yeah, I don't know. And I'm not sure how much this has been tested. I don't know if someone has ever tried this before and then they've been sued for it, or there's been any sort of process in court over it. So I don't know. I have no idea if there's any sort of legal issue here or not. It just seems kind of odd to me. I would think that there would have been quite a few places. I know that there are sometimes clubs you can't get into to a certain age, but that's not necessarily about not having something of it. That's clubs go, okay, well, we're only for this kind of, card carrying member. Oh, we're only for 21 and up. Oh, we're 18 and up. And there are some clubs that are 25 and up or 30 and up. And that's different because it's a private club, but you're talking about just the sale of something and saying this is something that is federally and state law makes it legal at this time, at this age, and we're just going to say that we don't want to abide by that, and we're going to raise that age. My business personally, not a state, not a county, not a city, like my store is going to do that. And I just don't know if there even is a legal question here, if they totally can, or if they can't, and there could be some trouble down the line for that. And I don't have the answer for it either. I just find it curious that I think if there was, say, a college campus that all of the stores that sold alcohol there decided that they weren't going to sell to anyone under the age of 30 because they were trying to limit, the parties and things going on like that and underage drinking, I think that there would be quite an uproar by a lot of people saying, well, they're adults, they're of age, if they're 21, all that stuff. And so it just kind of strikes me as kind of hypocritical that I think that some of the people that are arguing for this and are like cheering stores for doing this and making this age limit on their own have issues with other things similarly, including, things like an age you have to be to, they scream about when conservatives, or even not just conservatives, but doctors and pro-life and medical communities say that, before 16, you need to have consent of an adult to have birth control or to have an abortion. And they go berserk about that age limit. And, they need to be able to control this and do that. Well, now you're talking about actual adults, like legally adults at 18, and raising something that is their, federal right, and then also has a federal age limit and discarding that. I don't know. It just seems a little bit, it seems like there could be some trouble there down the line, but I really have no idea about the legal implications.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that there wouldn't be legal implications, because if you take it and make it any other product and say, oh, it's not that we won't sell you anything else in the store, but we just, it doesn't matter that the federal mandate is 21. We choose to not sell alcohol until you're 30. I can't see these people not winding up with discrimination suits if it was something like that. And it's not like you can't make the same argument, because look at how many people who are 21 that drink and drive. Right. If we're going to start, and this is one of the things that I've been talking about this entire time, once we start down this very, very slippery slope, where the hell is it going to end? Because
right.
At this point, what we might as well start looking at is all of the different benchmarks that we have that, I'm sorry, that was supposed to come out benchmarks. I'm not quite sure what that sounded like. All of the different benchmarks that declare adulthood, and maybe we should find a way to standardize those, because I think part of the reason why we have this entire generation that has no clue what the hell it means to be an adult is because there's so many different milestones, and they're all in different places. There should, if we're going to really start looking at this, we need to pick an age that says, at this point, you are an adult and you are legally responsible for yourself, which means you can't be on mommy and daddy's insurance anymore. You have the ability to buy a gun if you choose to, as long as you can pass your background checks and you're not insane. You can drink, you can sign a contract, you can join the military, but let's pick one. We've got like 14 different things that say, oh, I'm an adult now. Oh, wait, but I still can't buy ammo because you guys don't want to sell it to me here. But I can go down the street right over there and I can go buy it.
Well, right. And see, a lot of the argument that I've seen, and like you and I have talked about, we don't necessarily disagree with this. We're just talking about what we consider a legal adult. But some of the arguments I've seen coming from the left and from some of these senators on raising some of these ages, proposing that they're even raised federally, not just by the stores themselves, is that, they're not capable of mature judgment, that they need more time to grow. Their brain needs more time to mature. And, if that's true, if they're not capable of mature judgment as an 18-year-old, and that needs to be 21 or 25, then we do need to be consistent about that. And let's go ahead and not call people adults if they don't, and make them be responsible for other things in so many legal ways. And then say, no, but you can't do this and you can't do that. And it's too confusing. And I remember being in that in between, in the 18 to 25, like, in some ways you're very empowered and you are kind of kicked out into the real world and said, here you go, get after it. You're an adult now. And then in other ways, you're constantly told that, no, you're not. You're still a child. And it's very confusing and it's frustrating. And it's hard to, I would say that it does kind of hinder your ability to grow when society is telling you two completely different things based on what's convenient for them at the time and what's preferable to the adults that happen to be in that room at the moment. It's just confusing. It's not really that fair, and life isn't fair, but there has to be a better solution if we're going to throw out these ages as arbitrarily, meaning that there's some, these arbitrary ages of that now means you're actually capable or can handle this or should be allowed to do certain things.
I mean, think about how confusing it's got to be for kids in this day and age, though. Hey, you're 18, which means you can legally sign a contract, and that means you're legally responsible for this contract that you signed, but we don't think you're responsible enough to go get your own insurance, and so since you're still in school, you can still be on your mommy and daddy's insurance until you're 26.
Not only that, but if you don't have parents that you can be on their insurance, how hard it is for you to get anything decent, and how hard it is, and that sometimes you still have to have someone that's going to essentially kind of co-sign for you, or you have to go through 4 or 5 years of like the bare minimum crappy online insurance that'll approve anybody, because no one does take you seriously yet and they won't insure you yet. So, there's all those kinds of, there are hotels, so many hotels will not rent to someone under 21, and some don't rent to people under 25. Car rentals, all of these things, it's very, like we said, it's just very confusing and it's frustrating. And then also to be able to say, oh no, but at 14 years old, you absolutely have the right to choose whether or not you abort your baby or not. Or at 16 years old, you don't have to tell your parents that you're going to undergo this procedure or have an IUD implanted for birth control, like a foreign thing put in your body. I am fine with girls that want to have the option to do that and that parents want to allow them to do so, but to act like they can make this choice on their own without parental consent, because some doctor said so, but then they can't, but then we're saying that an 18-year-old or a 21-year-old can't do X, Y, and Z because they're not possibly mature or capable enough to handle that. It's just absolutely asinine.
Yeah, and again, all of the things that you described, now I'm a little bit older than you, but when I went through it, it was confusing enough. But there wasn't this confliction of, at this age, you should be able to decide what you're going to do with your body, but, you can't sign a contract yet, you can't do this, you can't do that. That's like when I was 18, I had a place that was ready to rent me an apartment, and all I was doing was working 4 hours a day doing janitorial work while I was going to school. They were like, yeah, dude, come in, sign the lease. You're good to go. And nowadays, it's like you said, you can't even rent an apartment anymore without an adult co-signing for you, usually till you're at least 25. And then if your credit sucks, you're still screwed. Things have gotten so weird everywhere. And this is just another continuation of the same thing. And now we're going to make it even worse. And, again, businesses have the right to decide what they're going to do. But we also need to remember that businesses don't have the right to violate the law. So by extending that age for just certain things, it would be one thing if 7-Eleven said, hey, you know what, we're going to make a policy that from now on, we're not serving anybody anything under the age of 25. If you want to come in here, this is the age you have to be. Show ID at the door. That's one thing. That's the same thing as a private club saying, hey, we're only going to be here for members. Or, hey, this particular club, because we've got gang issues in the area and everything else, you got to be 25 years old to come in here and you can't wear a certain color to come in the door. Those things are normal, but when we start picking and choosing little bitty nitpicky things, it would be, to me, what would make sense is if 7-Eleven is concerned about selling alcohol to people that are 21, or maybe even they're more concerned that people are coming in with fake IDs that aren't really 21, maybe they should just stop selling alcohol altogether. That part makes sense to me. But this selective, we're going to take the age even further than the law says that we can. I don't honestly, I'm not an attorney.
Well,
we need to ask Mo.
Yeah, like I don't know if there could be. I'm sure that someone could make a very good case. I'm just not sure if there actually is a case. But anyways, it just seems kind of strange to me. I also always thought it was weird on my college campus, the University of Texas at Austin. A lot of the convenience stores around there wouldn't accept, even though they're perfectly capable of doing so at other gas stations all around Austin, they wouldn't accept out-of-state IDs. And so you couldn't, my friends that were going to school here from out of state either had to go ahead and claim residency in Texas and get an ID in Texas in order to buy alcohol, or they weren't allowed to purchase unless they looked like 45. So, and I always thought, well, that's kind of messed up. I mean, I get it because it's just so hard to know all the different IDs. But when you're sitting behind a counter as opposed to the bouncer at a door, when you're sitting behind a counter, and I had a friend's parent who for a long time ran one that was not too far off of campus, they can ask for and get, as someone who sells things and has to deal with multiple IDs, they can get, where they can see all of the viable credentials. And so he had a legitimate binder full of licenses where if he had any question, he could flip to that and look and see, okay, there's supposed to be a hologram on the bottom left, and you're supposed to be able to see this, and this is supposed to be written on the right, and da-da-da. So if he really had a question, he could do that. And you have the time to do that at something at some place like that. I know it's extremely inconvenient, but it always, as a kid going to school, it was like, well, that really sucks, because he doesn't know if he's going to stay in Texas after going to school here, and does he really want to change his home address? And then if he does work some, it changes taxes, and if he goes home in the summer, and it messes up. It can be very inconvenient, but I don't know anyone that ever challenged that, but it kind of seems along the same lines of we're just going to kind of make up random rules. And I'm for businesses being able to have the freedom to do what they're comfortable with. I just do wonder when you're talking about something like this that has a federal age limit, whether or not they are supposed to honor it or not. I just don't know.
That was loud. Sorry, I suddenly had some sort of a calendar notification pop up on my
I
computer.
would guess, if I had to guess, I would guess that in Texas they would be allowed to, because Texas has other laws that have age requirements, and they actually allow them to go below that. So our drinking law is 21. However, if you are with a parent or guardian, that parent or guardian can buy you a drink and hand it to you, even if you are 13 years old.
I need to move to Texas.
The establishment does not have to allow that, but it is legal under Texas law for that to take place without the establishment being in violation of law. Now, the waiter can't come over and hand the child a drink, but the parent can. Same thing with drinking in their own home. Now, that doesn't extend to being able to just be an adult that can do that for anybody that's underage. It has to be their guardian or parent. But so I kind of think that Texas would maybe lean towards the side of, okay, you do it how you want to enforce it. You know what I mean? This is the law, but okay, if that's your decision, that's how you're going to run it. It's your establishment.
Yeah, that just reminds me of how my dad used to do things. I think that was honestly one of the things that kept me out of so many types of trouble when I was a kid, was my dad would just be like, look, dude, and this was after I'd already moved away, so we'd come home for long holidays like Christmas and summers and things like that. And my dad, even 14, 15, 16 years old, would just be like, dude, if there's anything you want to drink, don't go to your friend's house and do it. Hell, if nothing else, have your friends come here. I'll buy you guys whatever you want, and you can drink whatever you want. That takes all the fun out of it. So I have to admit, I took advantage of it twice, and my friends thought it was the coolest thing ever. But then after the couple of times, I was like, this is just, they're and I still, to this day, I'll have, I've had the same 6-pack in my fridge for a week now.
Yeah. Well, can we talk about one other thing real quick?
Sure.
The fact that this country, we are so emotional, and we are, and understandably so, this was a terrible tragedy, and we, obviously everyone wants to be able to do something, but like we've talked about before, do you do something for the sake of doing something, or is there something that's actually affecting a real change that will matter? The problem with this movement that has spurned out of Parkland is that we are emotionally having a breakdown and just completely losing our crap over AR-15s, specifically AR-15s. And that is the main thing that everyone is really focused on doing something about, is these big, bad, mean AR-15s. Now, you and I have discussed about how what that really means, what kind of guns they really are, how so much of it has to do with it being scary because it's the cosmeticness of it makes it look scary because it's black and militaristic and all of that kind of thing.
It's because it's black.
But here's the reality. Here's the reality. Since 2007, per the CDC, since 2007, so the last decade, 173 people have died by an AR-15. 170, that's 173 people in 10 years, over 10 years. Think about that. In 2015 alone, and that's all people of all age groups, of every demographic. In 2015 alone, 6 teenagers per day died in car accidents. Not all people, not, 15 to 25, teenagers, 13 to 19, 6 a day. So AR-15s have killed less than 2 per month, and car accidents killed 6 per day, teenagers only, in 2015. Now, no, they are not the same kind of deaths. I absolutely understand that. But think about the gravity of this. Think about the rarity of the deaths by these weapons of war, these assault rifles, these awful, big, ugly, scary things that are just slaughtering our children, right? That's what we've been hearing. That's what we've been told. And it's just not true. It's just so incredibly disingenuous. And when you try to point that out to anybody, they completely lose it because they don't want to hear it, because they just want them gone, because that will make them feel better. But the reality is, it is not going to do very much to change the lives of all but a few people. And as sad as that is, I don't want to sacrifice any life over this, but as sad as that is, that's the cost of freedom, and that's the cost of our rights. And right now with the AR-15, that is one of the least costs we've had to bear as far as freedom. More people die in a kitchen fire every year than have died in 10 years from an AR-15. I mean, our overwhelming emotional foolishness over something like this to just knee-jerk, ban something to make ourselves feel better and safer is, like I said, it's just foolish, and it's not going to do anything, unfortunately, other than give ourselves a good little feel.
So you said 6 a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was 10 years?
No. 6 teens died a day in car accidents in 2015 alone.
Oh, okay. I thought we were talking about. Okay.
No. So over 2,000 teenagers died in 2015 alone in car accidents. Just teenagers.
Okay.
So over six a day. In 10 years, 173 people died from AR-15s.
Well, what I was doing was I basically, assuming the average stayed about the same, I went ahead and extended that out to the 10 years so we could compare the numbers. So how many was it for the AR-15s again?
173.
If the number stayed consistent and 6 teenagers died every single day from car accidents every day for 10 years, and odds are the number was probably pretty close, that would be 21,900 teenagers dying in car accidents in 10 years.
And where are they screaming about raising the driving age? I mean, that's where this does kind of come in similarly. So why are we not saying that they're not ready to handle driving? they're not ready. Like, they should be on permits for all of high school. And then when they turn 18, maybe they can get their license. There are some places where they have raised the age of driving to 17, and I know that in some cases, depending on behavior and, school, how they do in school and stuff, there are some limits in some places about that where it might be 18. So why aren't we talking about that? I mean, that would absolutely save a bunch more lives. It's absolutely horrific. And it is part of life, and it is part of, unfortunately, the cost we pay for being able to drive a car and to allow our kids to gain that freedom to be able to do so. But why are we so willing to take that risk and to swallow that cost? And we are absolutely coming unglued as a nation over something that is far, far, far less common.
Imagine how much cheaper our car insurance would be.
That is true.
I'm just saying.
I know that I know a lot of teenage parents that are going, oh, I totally feel you, but I also really like my kid being able to run to the store for me.
I'm right there with them. I'm not even gonna lie.
But,
even with
it is curious. It is curious where we choose to be outraged and where we choose to be emotionally dramatic about something and where we don't. And I know it's horrific because they were murdered, but sometimes kids murder other kids with cars too because of this immaturity, because of this inexperience, because of their inability to multitask even. So it's really hard for me. I am very, very, very sad that this has happened again. And I am, all my prayers and love go to the families, and I can't imagine what they're going through. But I just feel like we need a little perspective.
Oh, we need a lot of perspective. And
especially since this guy could have been prevented. I mean, there's just so much evidence piling up that it could have been prevented.
So, it's funny that you mentioned cars because the opulent Amish, who used to have a different name, but I'm not going to give it out because people like to go after him, who I absolutely love. He's like probably one of my more favorite follows because when he gets going, there's just no stopping him. So there was a guy all over my TL today who was one of the ones well-regulated, blah, blah, blah. So he basically says, hey, can you explain to me why any civilian should have a Camaro or a similarly fast car? Surely you're aware of the number of speed-related traffic deaths. Can you explain to me why normal people need a box of stealing glass that can travel over 35 miles per hour?
I mean, we can just go down this road with so many things if we wanted to. And I know that it's really, this just tugs at everybody's heartstrings, especially when it's kids that die. But I don't like the way that this country just overreacts to such a point that they are willing to really give up not only rights and liberty, but to do so for nothing, because it really, in most of these cases where this has happened, it would not have changed a thing.
Yeah, no, but here's the thing. Yes, I'm heartbroken. Yes, it tugs at my heartstrings. But you know what? And maybe it's because I've done that type of work. But you know what pisses me off? The fact that this could have been prevented. That we have laws in place that would have prevented this already, if not for the fact that we had law enforcement that refused to act 40 plus times. This discussion we need to be having is not about the guns. Look, fine, if you want to find a way to beef up background checks, I'm okay with that. Not as a libertarian, but as somebody that used to do this type of work, I understand that there need to be safety measures in place. But what I don't want to hear is a sitting president of the United States of America in 37 seconds tell us he wants to violate 6 amendments to the Constitution. This is not okay.
Yes, and I understand that there's been so much spin on this that it makes me want to vomit. And there are a few perspectives on this that I do respect and I do think are possible for what was actually meant here about temporary gun restraining orders and whatnot. However, at no point in any time should a government official, much less the President of the United States, ever ever should the words due process come second. And it's just so hard in the courts to do the due process procedures. I mean, the way that
he might as well just said this due process thing is annoying and I don't like it, because that's basically what it sounded like.
Yeah, and I do agree. You know, one of our friends, Stacey Lennox, wrote an article on the Resurgent about the temporary gun restraining orders and how that had been something that had been being discussed a little bit and had been brought to the attention, was kind of on the agenda. And so I do think that there was some of that in that brain floating around about how, okay, we could do some temporary things so we could figure out what's going on and then restore rights after that and blah, blah, blah. Of course. But the problem is he sat there and that's not what he said. What he said was, sometimes you take the guns and the due process comes second. And that is never okay for any government authority in government to say, and especially not the President of the United States. It's an absolute atrocity.
No, I completely agree. And you know what? I just realized we've been on such a tear. We kind of blew through the break. Guess what? Since we didn't do a show Tuesday, we're not taking a break. Let's keep going. It's almost 9:40 anyway. Okay. Hell with it. What are they going to do? Fire me?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. She might.
Good luck with them.
I'm just saying. All right. So anyway, so you know, I mean, there's really the thing about it is there's really nothing else in the news right now, because this is all everything everybody's talking about, except there's so many other things that we should be talking about, but we're talking about this. We still don't know what the hell happened with the Vegas shooting. That completely went off the map. I still want, because that was weird. The whole thing was weird. Because I have actually been around people that have shot with bump stocks. Those firing patterns, and maybe it's me because I sit around all day editing audio with a headset on most weekends and when I'm not at my day job. But that audio didn't sound right to me to be bump stocks. And the fact that we just don't, it's just done. Nobody knows anything about it. Nobody's releasing any information. They're stonewalling freedom of information requests. I was like, but yeah, let's go back to arguing about AR-15s. I don't understand how we got to this point. It's like we have nothing but freaking scandal, or not really even scandal, but just crazy news story, one right after the other. I can't keep up. I mean that.
Well, and I think this has just been, it's hard to tame the beast. And once the 24-hour news cycle was made more accessible, made more of a thing, and now with social media, and I know so many people where even just with my parents who have news on all the time, and I'll be like, oh, well, did you hear about da-da-da-da-da? My dad will be like, what? And I mean, he's a stock guy, and he is constantly on news sites and I'll say, oh yeah, it was this and this, because I'm on Twitter, and Twitter, everything hits first on Twitter for probably most things, actually. And he'll be like, oh my gosh, okay, I didn't see that. And I was reading all the headlines, just 20 minutes ago, and I didn't see that one come up. And there's just all this access. And then there's all these people willing to, whether it's report it, whether it's opine on it, whatever it is, it's out there. It's being put out there constantly. And so a lot of things are being found that never would have gotten the time of day before, especially with things like Twitter. There are a lot of stories that get that kind of go viral that never would be picked up by mainstream media before, or various issues in a local county sheriff's department that would never really make it to the big time, that get brought out because of this cycle, and then because people are always looking for an angle, and in a lot of ways because there is still a part of the media that is very distrustful of anything that they are told or learned. And so that's why you did get some of the stuff about Broward County coming out. Of course, you weren't seeing it headlined on MSNBC, but you were seeing quite a few outlets that were releasing what they could find about infractions in the past by this Broward County Sheriff. So I think, unfortunately, it's just like buckle up, because we're never going to go back to where there's like slow days anymore.
Yeah, no, I don't think we are. Like, one of the things that's kind of slipped through the cracks, because apparently there's either some sort of a staged conflict between Trump and Sessions right now, or Trump is actually openly pissed off at Sessions. I'm not even sure which one it is anymore, because it seems like half the stuff that Trump does is all for theater. But Devin Nunes actually just reached out to Jeff Sessions and actually warned him that he believes the FBI might have violated criminal statutes with FISA applications. This actually comes from the Washington Examiner. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes, Republican California, informed the Justice Department on Thursday that the FBI may have violated criminal statutes when it sought Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants to spy on an ex-Trump foreign policy advisor, Carter Page. The move comes 2 days after Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced that the DOJ's Inspector General will investigate other alleged FISA abuses.
Ruh-roh.
So, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but does anybody else find it really, really weird that we had this major mass shooting within days of all of this news supposed to have been coming out about the Democrats and all the shady crap they've been pulling for the last 8 years, and they kept telling us wasn't a thing?
I don't know. What I do know is that something at least stinks in Broward County, because, man, there's a long list of stuff coming up. And that, let me tell y'all, that sheriff, there is nothing leadership about him. It's all indignation. It's all ego. It's all absolutely unwarranted pride and confidence. And I have a feeling that this is going to get a lot uglier.
Let me explain something to the folks out there that, everybody knows a boss like this guy. Some of us have been bosses. Some of us have been management positions, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. This is the guy that tells everybody what a great boss he is. If you got to tell everybody what a great boss you are, it means you suck. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and also there is one thing. It's one thing to say, oh my gosh, that's not how I train this person, and I can't tell you why they didn't do their job, and I am so sorry for that. It's a totally other thing to say, you know what, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I still stand by that I'm blah, 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 because he didn't go in and I can't control him, and that's too bad. No.
I think the thing that floored me the most was when Tapper asked him a question, and he's like, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, O.J. Simpson would still be something. I don't even remember what he finished the sentence with. But I'm just like, dude, that's not something a sane person says. Ever. Ever.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and then just, I don't know. And the fact, I mean, it's just like, it's really incredible to me that he went on that town hall knowing that officer at that school did not go in, and then that there were even more that didn't go in. He knew all of the things that unfolded that day when he went on that town hall, and still had the audacity to stand there and say what he did and behave the way he did. And then even afterwards acting like, why you got to come at me? I mean, he is acting like the teenagers that, how we expect a teenager to act, rebellious and kind of indignant and just childish and chip on the shoulder, and who are you talking to me like that? And it's just, first of all, so unbecoming of the office, obviously, but it's just unacceptable as an adult. And he is, I wasn't all in on the hashtag, coward Broward and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, man, he is just looking more and more like he deserves that label, because he is a real piece of work. And one of my good friends said, if a man that can do all of this can stand up there and say the things he said, and then all of this comes out and he still acts like What's the fuss about? Who cares? Get over it. Suck it up. Y'all leave me alone. I'm the best ever. You don't think, and now it's come out that he covered up all sorts of other things, that he did stings to only nail black guys, like all sorts of stuff. He said, this is why we have to have a distrust of authority in general, because if you think that guy wouldn't murder you and cover it up to save his career, you've got another thing coming. You do not know the bounds of people that have that much ego and pride. And that's unfortunate to say. I'm not talking about him actually going out and like contemplating a murder and making that happen. But if he needed to protect himself and his department and his livelihood, this is the type of person that does whatever it takes. He's already proven he has by other things that we've seen now. So, that's why we must, in general, be distrustful of authority, be skeptical, and be able to defend and help ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you would think, and look, I'm coming from a position of, I am 99.999% of the time I'm going to come down and side with a cop. But first of all, we knew there was one officer, and the thing that drives me crazy is all these people, well, I'm former military, and his training says that he shouldn't do this, and you've never been in that situation. Well, you know what? Yeah, I was in situations like that. Now, when I went through the academy and went through the trainings and everything else that I did, our procedure was different, because I wasn't law enforcement when everything got changed after, I believe it was Columbine, where they started changing how things got done. But I've talked to officers that are either in now or were in after things changed, and they flipped everything on its head. It wasn't radio and wait for backup anymore. It was radio and engage. Let people know where you are, what's going on, and then get in there and do something, because most of the time, if you confront these people, they're going to turn the gun on themselves or they're going to give up. Because they don't want to be stopped. Ultimately, they don't care what happens to themselves. They just want their 15 minutes of fame, and they want to take themselves out. And that's why the paradigm shifted. So when one cop, just one, who had the training, this guy wasn't a rookie. It wasn't like he was 6 months on the job. This guy was on the job for I think somewhere between 15 and 20 years. He's had the training. And for all these people that are like, oh my God, it's a big scary AR-15. That gun, when you fire that projectile, that bullet goes 3,200 feet per second. That's great for long distance shooting. Doesn't mean crap in close quarters. They were probably carrying either 9mm, 40 caliber, or 45 caliber weapons. That means that officer had a minimum of 45 rounds at his disposal and could probably change out a clip within a half a second, because that's what they trained to do. He had 45 chances to stop the guy when it was just him, and he's had training. There were 3 guys with him. Think about that for a second. That means between 4 duty belts, there were 45 rounds per person available with Kevlar, mind you. Now, the Kevlar wouldn't have stood up to the bullet if they were using the 5.56 or whatever the non-NATO equivalent is. It would have gone through the Kevlar. But I guarantee you that most other officers, because I've talked to other officers, and they're like, we don't understand why they just stood there. Because they heard it. You heard the way everybody else is reacting to the audio that's leaked. That's why there's been so much movement here. Because this is the first time that we've actually heard it live happening, and heard the fear from the children, and the shrieks, and the loud bullet firing, and the noises, and the glass breaking, and all the different things. And that's why this one has had such an impact when so many others haven't. Because we are such an emotional people. But the thing about it is, it doesn't have a damn thing to do with the gun. This kid called 911 after his mom died and said, help me, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself or I'm going to hurt somebody else. Broward County flipped him the finger. You want to lay the blame somewhere? Lay it at Broward County. I was pretty pissed at the FBI when I found out they had 2 tips and didn't do anything. Broward County knew about this kid 42 times over. Didn't do nothing. Don't come at me about the gun.
That's the thing. There have been times where, maybe there have been a few tips or something, and but they haven't exactly been actionable. And so what what can you do? Because I don't want to live in Minority Report where someone is just suspicious of someone else, and so we go ahead and go raid their house and like take them hostage. But so there have been times where it's like, well, what can they do? I mean, they got a few little things, but then other people that really had something they could have acted on didn't speak up, didn't make that evident, all of that kind of thing. But this situation has now come to light that there were all sorts of warning signs and things that were actionable, ways in which he could have been detained, he could have been charged, he could have had actual, even if it was not convictions, but possibly even help, could have gotten him into some sort of court-ordered treatment maybe or whatever. Like this county, this department has shown, and there have been some people that have exposed a lot of documents proving this, that they were going to take a hands-off approach. And I don't know with this particular kid, when it gets to be that many times, if they are just, numb to it and so over it, or if they were really hoping he would just go away, or if they were truly negligent in a real legal way. But they certainly had the opportunity, the ample legal opportunity, to have at least done something about him that might have stopped this from happening. It could have kept him, scared him even from going this far if they couldn't actually, get him a sentence. You know what I mean? So that's what's really frustrating about this is it's just a mind-blowing number of incidents, several of which, law enforcement actually was legally able to get involved, and they did not.
Yeah, and they chose not to. I mean, the one that sticks with me the most is when the kid self-reported. That should have been enough for them to come out, interview him, and at that point likely put him in for at least a 72-hour review, which at some point would have started raising flags. And they likely, right. I mean, the thing is, and we start talking about this, I know from experience 72 hours is not enough time in most cases to do a full psychiatric evaluation. But it is usually enough to start having red flags pop up when people go start, talking about buying guns or things like that. If you've been on a 72-hour hold recently, no, that doesn't show up on your background check. But it's enough, when, because, I mean, some of these incidents even happened after he self-reported. So if he had self-reported, had the 72-hour evaluation that is technically supposed to happen when somebody starts making threats against themselves and other people, then when Broward County got called the other 15, 20 times, whatever it was, that should have shown up somewhere. They were like, hey, this is a guy that we've already been out to multiple times. He's already self-reported and been through a 72-hour eval. Maybe we need to take a closer look. But, and the thing about it is we're giving Broward County cops a bad name because of the way this douchebag sheriff boss has been acting. But the simple fact of the matter is it wasn't just the cops either. The school district had basically told the police officers they wanted them to go hands off with the kids because they were trying to get their statistics raised up better so they could get better state and federal funding.
However, I still blame that on that department because they should not have acquiesced to the demands of the frickin' school district.
And they shouldn't have. I mean, and I'm not disagreeing with that.
They're definitely both to blame, but the department should have said, I'm sorry, no, we don't do that. This is law enforcement.
Yeah.
But, maybe this could have been the case that they, any of these times that you're talking about, even if they put him on a hold or whatever, well, then the people he's staying with say, he does have a gun in a safe. And then they go looking because they're like, okay, well, he's a threat to himself and to others. And so then they go see and take stock because this family thought he had, one handgun or something, or maybe a hunting rifle or something. I can't remember what it was, but they thought he had one gun.
Yeah.
And it turns out he had more than that, that he had bought and hid. So, they might have discovered some of these. I don't know. There just could have been, which would have prompted a conversation between Cruz and that family because they were already uncomfortable with the one. I mean, there's just so many different paths this could have taken then at that point, had anything been followed up on.
And paths that it should have taken. But
that maybe would have 17 more souls with us now.
But we're never going to get there because nobody cares about the truth of finding out why the shooting actually happened. Because the big bad scary AR-15 has to be destroyed.
Jumped out of the car and shot people.
I know, right? I saw the funniest thing the other day. I saw a meme, and it took me a second to figure out what it was because it was like AR-15s like leaning up in front of a dishwasher, and then I looked a little closer, and they had like superimposed like dishes into like the stock and stuff. And they're like, oh look, they're so cute. They're loading the dishwasher. Raise them upright, and they don't kill anybody. I was like, holy crap, that's just wrong. But yeah, the whole thing is just, it's sad. And what's really sad is we can't have a legitimate conversation about any of it because it's all about the big, bad, scary AR-15.
Well, and it's just so emotional. And then people want to say who's allowed to talk about it and who's allowed to have an opinion and who isn't. And they want to shut down conversation. They want to shut down opinion. They want to shut down any reasonable debate because dead children. I mean, that's all they want to do is just scream that in order to stomp their feet and get their way. And, I just wish that, and I know that the legislators aren't going to do this because it's their meal ticket and it's their game. And neither are the networks really because they want the sensationalism. But I wish that your average person would take a breath and look at this and go, wait, but what will this really do? First of all, even if you ban them, are you going to go confiscate the ones that are already out there? No. You're going to ban the sale. You're going to ban the sale of future assault rifles, if you want to pretend that's a thing. What true difference will this make? What effect will this have on saving lives? And if they look at that with any sort of reasonable mind, they will see that they don't have a good answer, that it doesn't bode well for them in their argument, because we just don't have a lot that shows that it would really make one dang bit of difference in most cases.
So it's interesting that we're almost out of time, and this is the topic that we landed on, because I promise it wasn't on purpose, but I actually am taking the night off tomorrow night, because, well, for the first part of the night anyway, because I have a surprise birthday party to go to. I had a guest scheduled for tomorrow night, who has actually now decided he's going to guest co-host instead, and one of the things that he's going to be working with, and he's got people like Corin Nimick and a few other famous folks that are kind of involved with it, is actually finding a common sense way to fix something that is a problem nobody seems to really be talking about. Even if we ban all the things, all these big bad scary guns, we still have all this black market stuff going on. So if we're really going to start trying to make sure that people that are bad people can't get guns, what are we going to do to stop the illegal sale of guns? So I encourage you to tune in for tomorrow night's episode of Off the Rails at its normal time, 7 Eastern, because Captain Obvious will be on with several guests and several different call-in people trying to see if we can sort some of that out, because it is honestly something nobody's talking about. Even if you ban all the things and you make the background checks stiffer and you make it where crazy people can't legally get guns, they can still go buy one out the back of a van.
Think about the war on drugs, but way more dangerous.
I know, right? And that's another thing that I've been trying to get across to people. I'm like, yeah, because, banning drugs, nobody can get those.
Well, and also just our efforts to try to limit them have been
expensive,
pretty epically awful. I mean, they've failed. They've been grandly.
They've been terrible. They've failed miserably. Our prisons are overstuffed with people that basically
and it's resulted in a lot of deaths too.
Exactly.
So this is going to be, a war on guns would be ridiculously more bloody.
Yeah, and I think the funniest thing is I keep seeing all these people talk about, Ronald Reagan banned the sale of actual fully automatic weapons, and now they're extremely expensive, blah, 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 blah. I said, but I keep trying to make them understand they're not banned. If you can still buy them, they're not banned.
Right.
You just have to have a federal firearms permit to be able to get them.
Yeah, and it limited the commercial manufacture and all that kind of thing, which, by the way, was already on the way out. That was already ridiculously limited compared to what it had been 40 years before that. So it's not the best argument, but anyways.
All right, so anyway, we are officially about a minute over, so why don't you remind folks where it is that they can hang out with you when you're not on the radio and on Tylenol with Cody.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at jhomestead, on Facebook, JR Homestead, and then also always on misfitspolitics.com. We've got a guest piece that was posted recently about the whole Parkland shooter thing and looking at what we can do. And I just wanted to read a quick line from it. Her name is April, and I don't know how to pronounce her handle, so go to my TL and you can find it. But here's just a little snippet of why you should go read this piece. She says, moving away from the excesses and unreliability of monarchy, our founders drafted a document of negative rights. And yet Western civilization has moved away from this healthy mistrust of the governmental leviathan and has come to view it paradoxically as some sort of benevolent parental entity. And when government fails us, as it did in the Parkland shooting, the authorities on every level had numerous warnings regarding the shooter. People respond with fear, clamoring for something to be done to prevent this from happening again, with more laws.
Hey,
and she's right.
Al just jacked your statistics, which he's like, question: How can you tell anti-Second Amendment politicians and their media minions are more interested in banning guns than protecting children? Answer: in 2015, 16 teenagers a day, 16 to 19 years old, were killed in motor vehicle accidents. Not a single politician suggested we ban cars. Come on, you could have at least hashtagged it things you learn on Jen and Rick or something. No, I'm just playing.
Oh, whatever. No, I think I had shared that link in quite a few places.
You probably
anyways,
did.
That kind of showed that. So
I'm just being facetious.
I'm happy for everyone to repeat it as much as possible.
I'm just being facetious. I just wanted to plug this show.
I know.
All right, guys, we are out for the night. I will be back with you, I guess, Tuesday, because I take it back. I'm hoping I'm going to be home in time for Robinson Right tomorrow night, but it is a birthday party, so I can't necessarily make any promises, if you know what I'm saying. All right, so we will see you guys next week. Take care. God bless. Hopefully Jen keeps feeling better. And please, God, can I just get through one more day of the day job? After being closed most of last week, a 5-day work week really sucks. I'm just saying. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.